There's a doctor somewhere right now in a fluorescent-lit room, staring at a patient who just told them their symptoms. And within 60 seconds, sometimes less, that doctor's brain has already generated a short list of diagnoses. Not randomly, not by luck, by a cognitive process so refined, so precise, that most people who witness it mistake it for intuition. That's what most people believe, actually. That great doctors are just incredibly smart people who memorized a lot of facts in medical school. Brilliant, sure, but essentially human encyclopedias who cross-reference symptoms against known diseases until something matches. That belief is wrong, and understanding why it's wrong will change how people see every doctor they've ever met. Because the most extraordinary thing about a physician's mind isn't the knowledge stored inside it. It's the architecture of how that mind processes uncertainty. Doctors don't think like other experts. They think in probabilities, pattern libraries, and carefully managed emotion simultaneously, under conditions designed to break concentration. And here's the question that won't be answered until the end of this video. If doctors are this cognitively sophisticated, why do they still make mistakes at staggering rates? The answer is darker and more human than expected. Here's where it starts to get fascinating. Medical diagnosis operates on something called dual process theory, a well-documented framework in cognitive psychology, studied extensively in clinical contexts by researchers like Pat Croskery at Dalhousie University. The idea is that the brain uses two distinct systems when making decisions. System 1 is fast, automatic, pattern-based. It fires in milliseconds. System 2 is slow, deliberate, analytical. It costs mental energy. Most people assume doctors are always in System 2 mode, methodical, checklist-driven, ruling out every possibility before committing to a conclusion. That's not how it works. Experienced physicians rely heavily on System 1, what Croskery calls illness scripts. These are rich, compressed mental templates built over thousands of patient encounters. A doctor doesn't consciously think chest pain plus diaphoresis plus left arm radiation equals possible myocardial infarction. The script fires, the recognition happens before the reasoning catches up. Watch what this looks like in practice. A cardiologist walks into a room. A 58-year-old man, slightly gray around the face, holding his chest loosely, not clutching it dramatically. The cardiologist feels something shift in their attention before they've consciously registered why. That subtle pallor, that particular stillness. The illness script has already activated. An ECG order is forming in their mind before the formal interview begins. That's not intuition, that's compiled expertise operating at speed. But here's what makes it genuinely remarkable and also dangerous. The faster and more accurate System 1 becomes, the more invisible it is to the person using it. Senior physicians often struggle to explain their best diagnoses. They know the answer, they can't always retrace the steps. This is called the paradox of expertise, a phenomenon documented across skill domains, including medicine. Which means the most experienced doctor in the room might also be the worst at explaining their own thinking. There's something humbling in that. Now for what might be the most counterintuitive thing about how doctors think, and it changes everything about the mistakes they make. Physicians are trained to update beliefs in real time. Bayesian reasoning, the mathematical process of revising probability estimates as new information arrives, is embedded in diagnostic thinking, even when doctors don't call it that. In a landmark study by researchers at McMaster University, clinicians were shown to shift their diagnostic probabilities with each new piece of patient information, largely consistent with Bayesian models. The mind is constantly running a background calculation. Given what's known so far, how likely is each possible explanation? Picture a patient presenting with fatigue and weight loss. The initial probability of cancer is low, maybe 3%. Then add night sweats, the probability climbs. Add a palpable lymph node, it climbs further. Each finding doesn't just add information, it multiplies the significance of everything already known. Most minds encounter uncertainty and want to escape it as fast as possible. The physician's mind has been trained to inhabit uncertainty, work inside it, and resist premature resolution. That is a rare and deeply uncomfortable cognitive skill. Most people never develop it because it requires what researchers call tolerance of ambiguity, the capacity to hold competing hypotheses without collapsing toward the most comfortable one. Studies in medical education, including work published in academic medicine, have found that higher tolerance for ambiguity is associated with better diagnostic accuracy. Sitting with not knowing when someone's life might depend on the answer takes a kind of cognitive courage that rarely gets acknowledged. And yet, even with all of this, the illness scripts, the Bayesian updating, the practiced ambiguity tolerance, doctors make mistakes. Serious ones. Diagnostic errors contribute to an estimated 40,000 to 80,000 deaths annually in the United States, according to figures cited by the Society to Improve Diagnosis in Medicine. Why, after everything described above, why? Because the same cognitive shortcuts that make expert diagnosis possible also create systematic blind spots. This is where the story turns. Cognitive bias in medicine is not a failure of intelligence. It's the shadow cast by expertise. Croskery's research cataloged over 30 distinct cognitive biases affecting clinical decision-making. Among the most dangerous, anchoring bias, the tendency to fixate on an early diagnosis and filter incoming information through it rather than updating freely. A doctor sees a known alcoholic presenting with confusion and abdominal pain. Anchoring fires liver disease, alcohol withdrawal, familiar territory. System 1 is confident, except the patient has a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The illness script matched too well. The Bayesian update never triggered because the first hypothesis felt settled. This isn't incompetence, it's the precise mechanism that makes expert pattern recognition possible, turned against itself. The mind that learns to recognize fast also learns to stop looking. And this is what creates the deepest tension in medical psychology. The very skills that save lives on Tuesday can cost a life on Wednesday. The same mental architecture, different patient, different outcome. Which finally answers the question held since the beginning of this video. Why do cognitively sophisticated doctors still make mistakes at staggering rates? Because sophistication and fallibility aren't opposites in the human mind, they are neighbors. The faster and more refined a cognitive system becomes, the more invisible its errors are, even to the person making them. This is what separates a decent doctor from an exceptional one, not knowledge, not ick. It's the capacity for metacognition, thinking about one's own thinking. Knowing when System 1 is overconfident, knowing when to slow down, invoke System 2, and deliberately challenge the comfortable answer. The exceptional physician has essentially built a second doctor inside their mind. One who watches the first one work and occasionally says, wait. What's left after understanding all of this is something more valuable than admiration for doctors. It's a more accurate picture of what competence actually looks like in any high-stakes domain. It's not certainty, it's not flawlessness. It's a mind that can operate brilliantly at speed, recognize when speed is lying to it, and have the discipline to pause, even when everything in the situation is screaming to move. Every doctor encountered from now on deserves to be seen differently. Not as an authority dispensing answers, but as a mind running extraordinarily complex processes under pressure, carrying the weight of consequence, and doing something that took years to build and still costs something every single day. That's worth sitting with. If this opens something up, a conversation worth having, a person in life seen differently, the comments are there. Sometimes naming what shifted is how the understanding sticks.